but stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. For the ramparts we marched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets and cannons bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Wonderful job. Thank you, students of Yorkville High School. So our program this morning, we'll do a number of thank yous and introductions before we get going. Upon completion of that, I'll ask any of the representatives that are here at the head table to come up if they would like to make a couple minutes of opening remarks. Follow that, we will have a brief lunch and then do a Q&A to hear some of the questions as well as the responses, and then end up with the final statement. We will stay on track to be out of here no later than 1 o'clock. So again, I'd like to thank our high school students, both from the musical end of things, but also that are sitting across that you at the tables, our National Honor Society ambassadors who will not only serve as escorts, but helping out with the food and certainly to giving you at the table some conversation over the lunch. As well as when you look at the bases at the tables, those were all created by our high school CTE program. So kudos to our students. Our gracious hosts today, the Yorkville Education Association, as well as our regional office with Shelley Seffner and Chris Mahachko. Thank you for being wonderful hosts in making this possible this afternoon. Our board members in attendance, if you could just wave, Tom Kozowitz, Sean Schumacher, and Ashley Shields. If she's here yet, she might be a little bit late, but thank you for coming today. And then obviously our state senators and representatives in attendance. We have Sue Resin, who is here today, Senator Jennifer Bertino-Tarrant, State Representative Keith Wheeler, State Representative Dave Walter, Justin Krolik, who is the Communications Director for State Representative Lindsay Parkhurst. Also in attendance from the Illinois Education Association, our Executive Director, Audrey Sogman. Tom Tully, Illinois Education Association Secretary and Treasurer, over here in the corner. Christine Benson from the Illinois State Board of Education, a board member for ISBE. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. From our Yorkville Area Chamber of Commerce, we have President Sarah Allen and Executive Director Sherry Farley. Thanks for joining us. Any of our District 115 faculty, staff, or administration, just raise your hand if you're in attendance. Good showing by them. Hopefully our buildings are under control. We do, if you're from a neighboring, we have 15 neighboring districts, some board members, some administrators, some union members. If you're from a neighboring district, you just raise your hand from the 15. So thank you for being here. And certainly I could not end this without thanking my administrative assistant, Kathy Anderson, Christine Liptrotter, Director of Communications, and Sean Collins from our local YEA for all the work and the efforts they put in here. So are they in the room? If they aren't, but please give them a round of applause. A great deal of effort and work and time on their part to make this possible. But I want to thank you for attending and your willingness to participate in a multi-county, statewide discussion to move the needle for greater opportunities for students, staff, and all of our 15 different communities that we're representing today. The second annual Education Matters Luncheon to continue the conversation of how our actions, our decisions, and our commitment at the local and state level can provide greater opportunities for our students, more than we ever imagined or have ever seen before. In a time when you hear in the educational world of personalization, when you hear flexibility, accountability, career path, student voice, student choice, increased transparency, and community partnerships, all those resonate throughout our conversation. And as a foundation of our educational reform efforts, we must not lose sight of the incredible impact and influence each of us in this room has on the youth of today and certainly the leaders of tomorrow. If you look around the room, you saw the hands go up for the staff and the students that are sitting at your tables. They're just a really small sampling that represent the thousands and thousands of students and staff that we serve in all of our communities each day. And they look to us. They look to us as role models, to serve as influencers, to serve as advocates, and to make decisions that will support their individualized pursuit of dreams and aspirations. We have to ensure that these students and these staff have an environment that's safe in order to achieve high levels of learning, where voice and choice is accessible and encouraged for our learners, and where our communities can continue to grow with new programs for all. We're going to spend a little bit of time today listening. We're going to ask some questions. We're going to hear some words from the folks at the front of the table here. But I guess I look at all of you to say that without action, they will remain just that, merely words. If we are true champions of learning and true champions of children in our educational system, those words must become tangible, attainable, and empowering. And not for one student, not for one of our schools, not for one of our districts, but for all of our communities. You know, there's certainly an uncertainty in the time that we are living in across our schools and across our districts and our communities and our state. But we also must preserve and feel good about the certainty that our local partnerships, our united and relentless voice has, and our committed leadership, that it will bring greater levels of excellence and prosperity for all. So let us today serve as a reminder that we are stronger together than any one individual, any district, or any one community. We know education matters. Title of this program, it does matter. And I applaud all of you for caring enough to take time on your busy schedules to be part of the continued conversation. At this time, I'd like to introduce Ms. Rachel Juarez, our president of the local Yorkville YEA. Rachel.
Thank you, Dr. Schimm. To all the legislators and all the educators, as well as to the many students and supporters of education who are in attendance today, welcome. My name is Rachel Juarez, and it is my pleasure on behalf of the Yorkville Education Association and our entire Yorkville family to welcome you. I would like to express my sincere thanks to all the event organizers who made today not only possible, but as you can see, exceptional. We all know there are those special organizers without whom events like this would simply not come together. And so I also would like to give a special thanks to Christine Liptrop, Kathy Anderson, and Sean Collins. Seeing so many people have traveled here today just serves as a reminder of how important our work really is. As an educator, it's encouraging to see so many stakeholders so willing to participate in this event. We are all here because we care enough to have those necessary conversations in order to do better and to be better for our students. As a member of my local association, I am one of over 600. As a member of the Illinois Education Association, I am one of over 135,000. And as a member of the National Education Association, I am one of over 3 million. Every day I remember this, I am one. But when those of us who have the same goal, the same purpose, the same calling stand together, we are a wave of influence in the minds of our students. Each of us sits here today as one, and we each have unique roles in influencing education. But today, together, and through our continued work, we can make a difference in the lives of our students. We can help create opportunities for them. We can help them open doors and solidify to them that we know that they matter. And we can do this by truly showing them that education matters. Thank you all for attending today and for your willingness to partner in showing all students on all fronts that their education matters.
And at this time, I would welcome any of our special guests that would like to come and share an opening remark for a minute or two and introduce yourselves. To please come up. Whoever would like to go first. Audrey? Yes, we'll start on the left and move our way down.
Good morning. First, I just want to say thank you to Sean, the YEA, and the district for inviting me. This is a really great honor, and I'm really happy to be here. And I really want to applaud the collaboration that was just on display here between the district and the union. It's something that we deeply believe in and are really proud to be able to say that the Yorkville Education Association and the Yorkville District work together in such amazing ways. I am the executive director of IEA. I just want to give you just a few minutes about my background. I taught for 25 years. And I taught in Evanston, School District 65 in the primary from K to 5. I taught everything from self-contained special ed, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, fourth and fifth. I just missed third. And so my lens in this job comes from all those years of being in a classroom and in a school. And that is part of what I keep front and center of my work every day. And I just want to tell you too that IEA is really kind of championing 3 big ideas. One is to educate the whole child. The other is to make sure that our members, as was mentioned, we have 135,000 members across the state, that our members' professional interests are met. And what we mean by that is that we know that when our members came to this profession, they did not come in to be a great union member. That's not what they signed up for. They signed up to be a great teacher or a great education employee or a great teacher's assistant. And so it is part of our job to help them realize that potential. And as we are facing a fairly large teacher shortage, and we know that, it's also to make sure that the economic interests of our members are met, so that we don't have to have people working 2 or 3 jobs. What we would like to be able to do is have all our members give 100% to the job they have in educating children. That's our goal, and I believe it's a shared goal across the state among every stakeholder. So once again, I would like to thank you. I look forward to the rest of my time here at this luncheon, and I applaud you for the work that you all do.
Good morning. I'm State Representative Keith Wheeler. Welcome to the 50th District, which is an area that I get to represent. I'm very proud and honored to do that. I first want to say thank you to everyone. I see Kathy's walking back there. Thank you. I know we talked about this last week, and I know it's a lot of work to put these events together, and it's a lot of time to dedicate to something, but this is something that's very important to all of us. You may know me as a state representative in the newspaper, but I spend way more of my time being a dad. And I have kids in college, and I have kids in elementary school, which means that I see a pretty big, wide array of what we're going through. I'm a small business owner. That's how I got involved in politics in the first place. It was something that I thought needed a bigger voice in Springfield, and it took a couple of times, but I got a chance to be elected and then go to Springfield and have that voice. And it turns out that the things that I really cared about when I got to Springfield they're still very important to me, are just a smaller subset of all the things I've learned about since I've been there. And events like this, where I get to sit down with people I don't get to talk to every day and try to understand the different things that make a difference in your lives, in your careers, and in the missions that you have to educate our children, are vital to me. So I really plan to listen today. I'll answer the questions you give me, of course. But my goal is to learn as much as I can about what you see right now. My kids go to school district 308, or the last one was the school district 308. And so I have a chance to talk to Dr. Sparlin and his staff on a regular basis about what's going on there. And I believe in developing a great relationship with the people I get to work with, and I feel the same way with Dr. Shim. Those opportunities as we build, those relationships are so important. When we go back to Springfield, and we can actually tell your story there. Things move very quickly in our state government when they're not going extremely slow. It sounds kind of contradictory, I know. But at the end of the session, things are really going quickly. There's a lot of bills moving fast. We need to know ahead of time and understand what matters to you and how we can help you and what you're trying to accomplish. And that is so important to me to have that information beforehand. So thanks for doing this in the early part of the session. Thanks for not doing it on a session day so I can actually be here. And thanks again for lunch. So.
Good morning. I'm Senator Sue Breslin. Dr. Shim, thank you for hosting us, and thank you to your administration for organizing this. It's an incredible event here today. To the IEA, thank you as well for being a sponsor, and thank you for everything that you do. The 38th district actually starts, this is the northeast corner of my district, so Oswego, Plainfield, Yorkville area, for the Kendall County area, but I also represent Will County, Grundy, LaSalle Bureau, and Putnam County. So if you're on Interstate 80 and you're driving from about Shanahan all the way west of Princeton, that is my Senate district. So, but proud to be here today. Just a little bit of background of the committees that I serve on, or I did want to say one shout out over here, Chris Mahashko as well. Thanks for doing this. Trivia fact, Chris's mom was my husband's first employee probably 25 years ago, right? Wow. It's been a while, so we haven't gotten any older, but it was a while back. So anyway, good to see you Chris as well. In Springfield, I've been honored to sit on the Education Committee for 9 years. I've been in the Senate for 9 years and have sat on education, and we've talked about a multitude of issues that are important to educators, to administrators, to taxpayers, and to policymakers. I've learned a lot. Certainly. I've had the privilege of sitting on 2 different education funding reform commissions, and the absolute privilege to sit at the bill signing for the new education funding formula that was passed this past year. I'll be honest with you, I did not think that I would be in Springfield long enough to see a major piece of policy like this changed, and it did take 4 years. And thousands of hours by our staff who make us look good each and every day, so I have to give them a big shout out. I always say that it was interesting at the bill signing for the education funding reform, you had Governor Rauner sitting next to Mayor Emanuel, sitting next to all of these people that you see in the media who technically are, against each other, sitting at a bill signing, talking about the success and the importance of changing our education funding formula. So in this state, we hear a lot of negative things, but I can tell you that good things do happen. They do. And I'm very proud of that big piece of policy that was passed. Of course, it's not perfect. Nothing's ever perfect when you're passing a large piece of policy like that. We will be making amends to it as we speak. And oftentimes, those changes we need to make that are affecting you in a way that we've never thought of is important now. So when we hear from your superintendent, your administrator, and your local IEA reps and your teachers about, sounds like a good idea when you passed it, but this is the negative ramification, we need to look at it. Now's the time, because we have a committee of the whole that will be looking at the education funding formula and potential, updates to make the policy better as well. I've sat on education for 8 years. I've been in leadership for the Senate for 4 or 5 years, and I sit on the executive committee where large pieces of legislation are coming. And I don't, I'm not telling you, I'm not saying this to toot my horn today, but I'm telling, and I'm talking to the young adults who are in the room who greeted me when I walked into the front door, who are sitting right here at your tables. I am so encouraged by what I see in this next generation coming up. And I want you to know that I didn't start in this position. I started as a stay-at-home mom with 4 kids and worked during the day in my home office. And I decided to go into politics with my kids. My kids are in their 20s now, but we're out of high school. So to all of the young adults in the next generation sitting in this room, you can do it. Figure out something that you really want to do and just work hard. And don't let anyone tell you that you cannot do it. So again, thank you to the young adults. Thank you, Dr. Schemp and your administrative staff and to the IEA for having us today. And I see my new colleague, Senator Bertino Tarrant, that just walked in the room as well. So you're up, Senator. Collecting her thoughts. Representative Walter asked me to say he's on his way. He will be late. He had a previous meeting. We all just rolled in late last night from Springfield, so we're trying to catch up in our district offices. So he just wanted me to let you know that he hopes to be here. We'll probably be on the back end of the session. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Sorry, I walked right in and got to stand. And I have to apologize. This is going to be like my sympathy talk here. I just had surgery. I had back surgery a week ago, so I'm not on my full game here. So I do apologize. I did hold off taking any of my meds, though. So I'm in a lot of pain, though. I am in a lot of pain. So it's great to be here. I always enjoy these opportunities to come and talk to my friends in education. Obviously, most of you throughout the years know my past. I've been a school teacher, high school teacher, I've been a school principal, the regional superintendent, and now as a senator, I get the privilege of chairing the education committee. It has been a great honor. People always ask me, what do you like better? And while I absolutely miss the rewarding experience you have with children, I would never take this opportunity back because everything we do, it's a growing experience, the learning experience. But it helps me appreciate what you do so much more because of this job too. I've had the opportunity to get out of my bubble. I've been in the Will County area. I was regional superintendent in the Will County area, but I've had tremendous opportunity that many have not had to see the schools throughout our state. And it's always amazing to see what our institutions do, depending on how much they have or how little they have. People are here for the right reason. So that's really my goal when I'm in the Senate. It's a battle. I always say this is the only job. It doesn't matter how much experience you have. No one cares about that. People have agendas. People have things they want to pass for whatever reason, and they're gonna. That's the responsibility to do. Whether it's for a constituent, whether it's for themselves, whether it's for a community. Sometimes things are done globally, sometimes things are done very, very narrowly. And we all know in education, everyone has next best idea, and everyone is passionate about it. They want to do what's right, but sometimes, again, knowing what's policy doesn't always equate to what's pragmatic. And, that's really my job to do. I piss a lot of people off, I'll tell you that right now. And it's in my own party, too. So, but I'm glad to be here. I'm looking forward to answering any questions, and thank you for sponsoring this today.
Caught myself there. Thank you, everybody, for inviting us. My name is Justin Krolik. I am Communications Director for Representative Parkhurst. She does send her regards. She wishes she could be here, but simply cannot make it work in her busy schedule. So she sent me instead. On her behalf, thank you for this opportunity for us to come. Representative Parkhurst's district is in 79, which includes a small portion of Grundy County, Coal City, South Bloomington, Gardner, and about 3/4 of Kankakee County, as well as a small sliver of Will County in Peatone and Beecher. This is a good opportunity for us to also not only listen, but to answer any questions that you guys have, and we're very happy to answer those questions. So I wanted to keep that brief, but thank you so much for including us.
Thank you to all for your opening remarks. And at this time, we will enjoy a little bit of food for the next 15 minutes or so, and then we'll come back together. All right, we're going to come back together. Hopefully, you have your tummies full, or you're in the process of continuing to do that. Feel free to continue to eat while we continue on with our program. This is the question and answer portion. Our honorary guests have been given the questions ahead of time, and we will be displaying the questions for your reference up above. But I'm going to turn it over first to our Director of Human Resources in Yorkville, Mr. Troy Courtney, for the first question.
Good afternoon. So you can see my question. The question that we put together, has there been any thought given to helping schools deal with the significant impact of the new wage increase? Since public school organizations can't simply increase revenues in order to offset the higher wages. Right now, schools not only face a specific cost increase for paying employees for the new wage, but we also must consider the increase of other employees who just earn above the $115 in order to maintain a percentage difference in pay between the employee groups. So in our employee groups, we pay for different skill sets, and what happens is we've got that lower group pushing up against the others, so we have to look at those as well. For park districts, the minimum wage mandate was lowered to $13 for teen workers, but there was no consideration for schools who also hire teens for summer help. What was your rationale for voting for or against the wage increases? Thank you.
Well, I guess this is me. I'm the only one who voted for it. What is our rationale? Our rationale is that $15, when you take it by 40 hours a week throughout a year, still only comes to $40,000. And while some may argue whether or not it's a living wage or a minimum wage, the reality is that we have people who are struggling on a daily basis, who are working 2 or 3 minimum wage jobs. And maybe it's not our experience, but it's someone else's experience. And this is to help, literally help people get out of poverty, and to question whether they really are getting out of poverty. How are we helping our school districts with this? It's a phase-in. It's a 6-year phase-in, where you're going to be, the first year is a couple increases, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, and then it's $1 after. So you are going to get plenty of time in order to incorporate the minimum wage increase. In regards to teen wages, there is still a lower amount, whether it's for park districts or in any business. The teenage rate applies to everyone. So I think that over 6 years comes increases to $13. Again, this is just it's a philosophical difference here regarding what we consider is plausible for people to live on. I mean, and again, many of your workers here, I'm sure, are parents or people who are adults trying to, maybe they have a couple jobs, they drop the bus, and then they work in a restaurant after. And again, truly, this will not solve that issue. It will not. But again, it's a right start. And I think you're going to start seeing this push at a national level as well. So how did we compromise it? It's by making it easy.
We supported this bill, the IDA, we supported this, understanding that our educational support personnel, many of whom across our state work less than 40 hours a week for a variety of different reasons, and are basically working in many situations for their insurance. So we have quite a few of our members who are way below the poverty line in terms of their service to school districts. So although we recognize that it puts pressure on collective bargaining, for example, we understand that as this is phased in, but it became for us, and I agree with the Senator, that it's a philosophical debate, and for us it became one of just, it was the right thing to do for a large segment of our membership who work in schools.
David, you want to talk? Great, I'll take the other side of that for a second. I did not vote in favor of that particular bill, and one of the reasons I gave in my remarks on the House floor had to do with how we were approaching the process of the bill in a number of ways. One of which was that there was no real dialogue between the two parties in the House. I was the appointed person from the House Republican Caucus to negotiate that. And we were just told there was not going to be negotiations because the sponsor nor the governor were interested in negotiations. And I think that's the worst thing ever. I think it goes to the point that they weren't going to listen to what the other ramifications of such a scheduled increase was. So my staff, and I'll point to Ben Markham who's sitting in front of you. Ben, raise your hand for everybody. If you, a quick sidebar, our staffs, and I'll speak for maybe all of us here, are vital and instrumental in how we actually function as legislators. And they are probably the biggest key to success when it comes to constituent services. Don't be afraid to reach out to our staffs. Oftentimes they know more about what's going on than we do on things at home while we're in Springfield. And please use them. They're tremendous resources. They care about what's happening here, and they're great ways to lean on us to get things done. So Ben, thank you for what you do. I brought that up because I asked Ben to reach out to local school districts, including Yorkville, Oswego, England, and others, to say, what impact is this going to have on your budget? We are facing difficult budgeting processes in some of our local districts, and that's a big deal. So we came back with a number in the millions over the course of this ramp up. And while I know it's a ramp and there are several steps to it, this ramp begins on January of next year, and in 367 days goes up by 33%. There's no data that exists right now to show us the impact of doing that. And we're talking about education in here today, but I'm reaching out to my friends in the business community who are here also and say that's a huge increase to deal with. And while the question as it's phrased is we can't simply increase revenues, that's kind of the opposite of how some folks in the private sector see this. They see this as, well, you guys should just raise taxes. We're competing with businesses across state lines. We can't raise our prices, we'll just lose out. I mean, those jobs go away. So yeah, there's a philosophical difference, and I agree with that. There was also another way to do this, to negotiate a longer ramp, to talk about teen wages being a bigger thing than 650 hours a year, which is just a summertime thing. We're taking a living wage and trying to apply to an entry-level wage. And there are two different things there. And we didn't have a chance to discuss or negotiate that. And I think that was probably one of the biggest faults of the whole process.
Thank you, Representative Wheeler as well. So I agree with most everything Representative Wheeler said. You know, we do have philosophical differences in Springfield. Obviously, this is one of them, respectfully. We always have to figure out, how will we pay for this? What does it look like to school districts? How much more money will it cost you for a small business, for everybody who's impacted? And I have a long list of emails from people who told us their personal stories. It's not that they don't want to pay more. It's not that they don't want to pay $15 an hour. But let me tell you how it impacts my small business. We hear about the big bad corporations all the time, but this had direct impact on small businesses who are paying property taxes, putting people to work locally. And oftentimes the stories we heard were, you know, I have a slim margin. Not that I don't want to pay them $15 an hour, but this is entry level, and by passing this bill in the manner that you did, not only am I not making money, I am losing money, and significant money. And we have story after story after story that have contacted us regarding the school districts again. I mean, and I respectfully, understand what my colleagues across the aisle and why they feel this way, but we have to figure out, how do we give you more money? We, after all of these years of prorations in school districts and the tough issues we've had, we finally, for schools, got to a place where we're giving you, after the new funding formula, a commitment from both parties, $350 million in new revenue each year, all right, that we want to see go in the classrooms and be used for wraparound services, mental health services, counselors, all of the different, areas that you need. Because of this, there will be less money unless we at the state level come up with more money, and you won't be hearing a discussion because of that about a new income tax, which is probably the next question that we'll be happy to answer as well. But these are tough questions that we face all of the time. I will say, and I agree with my colleague, Representative Wheeler, we don't always agree on big policy, but let's make it, listen to our concerns. And if we can get some of our concerns to lessen the impact on the people it's affecting, allow us to put a couple votes on it. We didn't even have that opportunity to have that discussion. Something such as regionalization for $15 an hour minimum wage. Chicago already does this, but it's higher cost of living in Chicago than in Southern Illinois. Other states, including New York, when they've passed a minimum hour increase, they regionalize it according to the cost of living in the area. That would have made this much more, easier to deal with in our budgets as well.
So Representative Parkhurst also voted no, and she understood the philosophical grounds. She did agree that in general that there probably should be a increase from the current minimum wage, but down in the 79th district, the cost of living is much less than in Chicago or the surrounding outlying areas, and we didn't see how our local governments, who are already struggling with their budgets and their property tax values and incomes, were able to absorb this cost. So many, we reached out to our businesses, we reached out to the school districts, and they said that there's really no way that we can afford this. We sat in a meeting after the minimum wage passed with a local pizza place, and he walked in pretty much crying because he came in and said, if I were to do the fair thing in 5 years, when we hit $15 an hour, is to give everybody the same increase, kind of like what you were saying with the percent differences between skill levels in the school districts. That would be the only fair thing to do, because when our entry level is making $15 an hour, it's not fair for the managers to be making almost essentially the same amount of money, which down in Kankakee is, livable. He said that if I were to do that, my 5% profit margin, it completely erases. It's gone. Not only that, I'm at a 30-40% loss year after year. Even if I wanted to not give our managers increases like we should, that means that we're still operating at a loss. I have to shut down because I cannot pick up and move. I cannot simply increase my prices. So the representative heard these concerns, and even out in Grundy County, we heard a volunteer fire department, because that's the only thing that they can have. Their fire department was, we don't know as a government agency how we can stay open. And this is a government agency who can tax. They simply cannot do it. So the representative had a lot of concerns, a lot of, while we understand the whole livable wage issue, there's also the other side of how are we going to pay for this? And it's not just, it comes from the state. It impacts our property taxes, it impacts our businesses. So that was her rationalization for voting no.
Okay, next question. Considering the teacher shortage and the low teacher salaries in many school districts across the state, what is your position on Senator Jennifer Bertino-Tarrant's bill proposing the repeal of 3% cap on teacher salaries, and Representative Keeker's proposal to provide MAP grants to students earning teacher certifications?
Touch on this first, if that's all right. Maybe the senator can talk about it since it's her bill.
Representative David Walter here. Sorry I was late coming in here, but happy to be here with you guys again this year. I would say, to touch on both of those points, I'm not opposed to either one. I think the senator probably heard from a lot of her constituents with the already teacher shortage out there, how difficult it is to be a teacher in today's world. I don't think it's a terrible idea giving schools flexibility, not limiting them at 3%. That's not, that should hopefully help a little bit, but there's many more things that we can be doing. This is just, I think, one of the steps. And I think the reason why you saw it at 3% was to try to get to some compromise last year. But the negative impact that I think it's having across the educational community, I think we've definitely heard loud and clear. So I'm not opposed to that. And then Representative Jeff Keicher's bill regarding the math grants for teaching, I'm not opposed to that either.
Again, obviously, yes, that was a big concern to many of my both teachers and administrators alike, that 6 to 3% was just not reasonable, and it really isn't. We talk a lot about, we don't have enough time, to think, and this is really how Springfield is a lot of times, where in order to compromise, we do things quickly. And I don't know if everyone truly had the full grasp of what a 6 to 3% reduction would mean to schools, and how easily it is for a teacher just to move from steps, and then they do a sport, or they have to sub a couple extra classes, how easily and quickly they can get to that 6%. I think there's a couple bills like that now, though. I believe, I have one. I know there is one in the House as well. And Senator Menard is currently working on a kind of an omnibus teacher shortage package. It's scheduled to be heard next week in committee. I'm not sure if he is ready to do it, but it's going to include various topics to address some of the teacher shortages, including getting teachers to student loans, 3 to 6% salary. So there's going to be a multitude of issues in that, and that is scheduled to be heard next week.
So we heard loud and clear from our members, our educators, immediately after this bill was passed, and I know they have contacted their legislators quite consistently about what this actually does, what this bill does in terms of suppressing teachers' willingness and ability, quite honestly, to do things like the debate club, to coach a sport, to do all kinds of extracurricular activities that districts are asked. Districts need teachers to do, and teachers want to do it, but it's really put a damper on all of that. At this moment, we have over 45,000 signatures on both paper and pencil petitions, as well as electronic petitions about this from our members. This is truly coming from the bottom up to us and to the legislators. So we're gratified because we also see bipartisan support of this measure in both our State House and the Senate. So we're hopeful that this will move forward in the spirit, I think, that the Senator and Representative just talked about, that this is not helping the teacher shortage, it's not helping districts, and it has a lot of unintended consequences that I don't believe people knew about when they voted for it.
Yes, let me reiterate, we heard from you when this was passed, so thank you. You may wonder, how did this get passed? Well, at the end of the year, there's this big all-encompassing bill, they call it the BIMP bill. And it has everything in it that you can imagine, and it's dropped on us literally with about an hour to read. And in the BIMP bill, probably on page 300, this was put in there. So it was a shock to all of us, needless to say. I agree with anything that helps with the teacher shortage. So after education funding was passed, the next biggest issue we've been dealing with, and with my colleagues over there, is teacher shortage bills to help with the problem. And it's a bipartisan issue that we all agree on. We're looking for the best ways and the best ways to once again encourage teachers to go into the profession and stay in the profession and keep them in the profession. We also, some of the other bills that we dealt with is helping with teacher shortage, reciprocity with your license from other states. We've heard about that, how that would be helpful dealing with teacher shortage. We have in the high schools, we offer dual credits now, as you all know, and trying to get teachers who are qualified to teach dual credit. Sometimes it's very difficult to find those teachers. We are working on to allow you the ability to, if the teacher's in the pipeline to be certified to teach dual credit, but is in the middle of this, taking all of the different classes they need, allow them to teach as long as there's a plan in place. And again, this is from superintendents reaching out to us to say, hey, this is a good idea. I had a superintendent from Seneca send me his white paper on that, so that was great. Any of the issues that we're talking about here today, we certainly support, because we all recognize there's a teacher shortage. And if you have other suggestions that we haven't addressed or that aren't in this omnibus kind of teacher shortage bill that we'll be discussing very shortly, please reach out to us, because often the topics I just talked about came from administrators, came from superintendents saying, this is, this would be helpful to us. So, perfect.
I try to help to let the experts who are on the education committees go first on some of the things that are actually happening in these. Let me talk for a second about Representative Kiker's proposal. Jeff Kiker is the new rep from the DeKalb area, and Jeff is my seatmate on the House floor. So Jeff is, finding his way through the process in Springfield for the first time as a brand new rep. I think he came up with a very thoughtful approach to something he cares dearly about, which is education. And I can't tell you the sincerity he put into the idea of saying, hey, veteran rep, third term, I'm hardly a veteran. How do I do this? How to move this forward? How to make a difference with an impact like this that I think would bring teachers into the fold in a way that's meaningful for those who want to get started in a new career like that. And I'm like, Jeff, speak from the heart. And he actually asked the speaker's office to do a perfunctory speech, and actually that was his first time he really spoke on the House floor ever, was about this issue. It's his number one thing right now. So I think we should definitely look into that further. Springfield oftentimes is about being in a hurry. So, Tara mentioned it, Resin did. The Bent bill's 600 pages long. You get literally an hour to read it. In the House we did anyway, as we came through this last time. It's unrealistic to get to gather all that together. And we live in the land of unintended consequences while trying to find a balance. And the balance is the word I probably overused the most in Springfield, because we aim toward it, rarely achieve it. And coming back to the process of what should that number be? Should it be based on an actual strict limit on raises? No. It should be some pension contribution? Probably. How we find the answer to that requires further discussion that oftentimes we just never get a chance to have in the last week of May. So by being out in front, making your voices heard, again, I said at the very beginning, I'll say it over and over again, engage. It's the most important thing that we need to have from you. So thank you.
I just want to add one other thing about the whole topic of teacher shortages. We at IEA have started really talking about it in terms of career sustainability, and teacher shortages are a symptom of a career that is not sustainable. So, and at the same time that we discuss this career sustainability, we're also very conscious and keep in front of our mind that this is a profession, and that you cannot lower your standards too much or so much that you start really derailing the profession. And so we're walking a balance here also. We understand the shortages as a symptom of a larger problem. We want to help because our members don't want to have class sizes that are 40 people in them, or taking care of another, having another class come into their class when there's no subs available. We understand that pressure. But it's also, we really have to think carefully about how we address these issues, because to lower the standards with the idea that anyone can teach is really dangerous. So we understand the issues. We welcome conversations. I will just say that the IEA is always willing to be in the room to have the conversation with any other stakeholder. To be quite honest about it, the last 4 years we hadn't had much of an opportunity. We're looking forward to these times now. We think those doors will be open again, and we're willing to work out these issues with whomever is at the table with us. We want to have these conversations. We want to be engaged. We want to help solve problems, and we welcome those opportunities.
The last 2 years that Representative Parkhurst was a representative, and this current year she served on one of the education committees in the House. And although she's a lawyer by trade and she has a lot more expertise and fun, so to speak, in the judicial, civil, and judicial criminal committees, this is an issue that she has got a lot of interest in. What we do in our district is we sit down with the superintendents and we sit down with the teachers and we listen to them, the issues that they're facing in their school districts, and teachers in their classrooms, and we try to make legislation out of that. And while we understand that sometimes the ideas put forward are not always ready to go and be signed into law, but we're always willing to, in Springfield, listen to opposition and try to work out the best case scenarios, and try to make this better. Last General Assembly, the representative attempted to address the substitute teacher shortage, and especially in our district, in our county. And we had a bill to allow the college seniors who are in education tracks to take time to substitute teach. And after hearing opposition, after hearing concerns from other parties and other stakeholders, the language was changed pretty drastically, but it was also subsumed into a larger substitute teacher. But we were able to say that we were allowed to be part of the conversation, and we're willing to be part of the conversation going forward. This time around, the representative has, sorry, 1 second. She has a bill that it looks to have these educators who are trying to be educators in college not be not have extraordinarily high issues of getting into the profession and these barriers. And I know we've discussed with NEA, not one-on-one, but in committee, about the concerns that they have in not making the profession less and less, and I guess in one way destroying it. I think I don't want to say that, but but we are willing to talk, and we want to address this shortage. We want to be able to be part of the conversation and be part of the solution. So, in terms of the 3% tax cap, we want to listen, and we want to be part of the discussion to see what these unintended consequences have been, and what other solutions that we can bring to the table.
Thank you. The next question is related to Senate Bill 28, sponsored by Senator Bertino Duran. Don't know how those were factored in, but as you know, the current Illinois School Code does not have any provisions or requirements related to direct supervision, giving school districts flexibility in the way in which we deliver instructional practice. Senate Bill 28 looks to reinstate that 5-hour seat time requirement or direct supervision requirement. And I'm interested to hear from each of you on where you stand on this current bill.
Well, it's another great bill, and it's even better. Actually, that bill just passed out of committee last week in a bipartisan fashion. It was fully negotiated. But let me explain my concern. We went from a 5-hour minimum day to no minimum at all. And while I have complete faith that our school districts and our school boards would make decisions that are
that slippery slope of not having a minimum requirement for us to supervise our students, and whether that's in the school building or not, I think we're going on a slippery slope, is what I should say. I remember a few years ago, I just got into the Senate, and there was a huge bill regarding charter school who wanted to create relationships with all the, to come into multiple communities. And, it was a huge blow up because they were going to cover the span of having these not necessarily buildings with each online charter schools. And it created a great concern to many of the school districts. While this wasn't a charter school initiative, it was very similar to me. We fought for the fact that, no, we can do a better job at our public schools, and we cannot allow this to happen. But at the same time, because in the school building is where it happens, but at the same time, we all of a sudden had a situation where minimum hours of supervision was no longer important. And I felt it was kind of contradictory. And I really didn't have any, I think it was more, the problem with this bill, I think it was more of the fear that the 5 hours was going to be too restrictive, because we know education has changed so greatly, and that internships are important, apprenticeships are important, dual credit's important, kids moving around to different buildings, still getting a solid education are important. So we did, the bill was amended. It was always my intention to work with every party. I probably have a different style of doing it because I have confidence in myself that I know it'll work out. And I can appreciate the fact that people outside of the legislation don't always have confidence in us, in what the end product is gonna be. But so again, that bill was agreed upon. We do still now have e-learning. Every school district now, it was a pilot program. As long as you follow those expectations, e-learning is going to be an option for any school district who so chooses. And then again, we do have, it's going to be the 5 hour minimum with the, we broaden the exception of what includes an instructional day. It did pass the Senate committee. It'll go to the floor probably within the next couple weeks. The House sponsor has really just let the teachers, the administrators, and myself just kind of created how we want. He's willing to present the bill as is, so I don't anticipate any issues. But again, it's the best of both. I really think this is the best of both worlds. We need to be sure. Again, we are a community facility, and we talk about our pocketbooks and our taxpayer dollars, and we know we are the focus, because when you get your tax bill, that is the greatest expense. So we know that the spotlight is on us. Again, too, maybe I'm thinking too deeply in it. We have no minimum, just didn't seem something that would, in the end game, come out very well for school districts.
So I'm gonna we were initially, when we heard about this, very opposed to it, and it has a lot to do with the process. I think you mentioned process before, and I'm gonna mention process in here. So, from what we understood, this was passed because of the new evidence-based funding model, which was something we supported. But it was not an intended consequence of it. And how we found out about it is when the state board started issuing guidance to districts about this. So there had been no input from teachers, there had been no input from the IEA or from the other teachers union. And so the process, we felt, had really been, it wasn't a good process. So we wanted to not catch up in terms of all these flexibilities that districts were now having. We didn't want to start off having 6 feet behind in the conversations. We wanted to be equal partners at the table. We worked out the amendment with the senator and with the administrators. We had a lot of conversation with our colleagues in school management and our own members. We like some of the flexibilities. We accepted that. We know that. We think the e-learning piece is just a little bit of a larger piece that we want to sit down and talk about. But we did support the amendment. We aren't against flexibility. we want some parameters around that, and it was largely due to the process of how we even found out about it. That's how we found out about it. Guidance that was delivered to school districts. So it's a major change, and for us to find out about it that way, we weren't happy about it. We're on board now.
Yes, Representative Walter here. I'll just touch on it, talking with the Senator. I guess the underlining bill, as opposed to, I heard from many school districts in my area that were already taking advantage of the new flexibility and local control that they were given. And I heard from a lot of them that they don't necessarily want to go backwards in that regard. It's allowing them the opportunity to become more innovative by allowing them to really at the local level determine that. And I'd really like to make sure that we don't trample on that innovation, continue to allow that. I have not looked at the amendment to see exactly what it does, but I will once we're out of here today. So I will hold judgment on that and say that I'm open to balance, compromise, but the underlining will was I was opposed to.
Keeps looking at me over here. Yeah, you know, this is a perfect example of, and this is the stuff that you don't see. You know, you just read, you get a call to action that this bill is before us or that this had happened. This is a bill that's been negotiated. There's an amendment that is on it. And yes, it was an unintended consequence of the evidence-based funding. I sat at the table with everyone else, and I don't remember discussing this in particular. But it was a large bill, and here we are, and we have to figure out.
It's currently in the Senate, is that right? So it can change in the House. It'll be probably before Rep. Parker's Education Committee. So we're gonna just kind of wait and see, look at the bill, see what all parties have to say about it.
Go last, because I want to talk about the rest of the process, because it matters. That bill's going to land in the House at some point in time, and that doesn't mean that the sponsor or someone else can help amend that bill in the House. So just because we got to win for balance and flexibility at the same time, potentially here in the Senate, doesn't mean we stop paying attention to it. You have to watch it the whole way through the process. We've seen things that I was 100% for from the Senate get amended. You're ready to speak about how great this bill is and find out it's been amended in the committee that I wasn't in, and turn out that I'm totally opposed to this bill now. So the process matters. Watch it, you got great advocates on your behalf, but at the same time, your voice is vital to the process. So pay attention for us, please.
And before we go on, and just so you know too, because I'm familiar with Kankakee, there was also, and we can't confuse this, but there was a competency-based pilot program as well. And this bill has never touched any of that. So some of the extra flexibility that some schools like Kankakee had is because they applied for a waiver. So that's completely separate than what this bill is doing. Those waivers are still in place, and school districts were still able to apply for those pilot programs. But I do have to think, you know, why it is so important. Again, it's not about schools not doing the right thing, but you have to remember, even when we talked about e-learning, and I kid you not, when people had the flexibility to do e-learning, some of them took it upon themselves because that's how it is right now. You can do e-learning across the board. E-learning was, here's your kid, here's a pack of papers, and they do it and they turn it in. I mean, I've gotten calls for that. I got calls from parents who said, what about my special ed student? They just got sent home a pack of papers, you know, am I just supposed to work with these and they turn them in? Or what about their hours? Are they going to miss their minutes? So again, you know, it seems like we're being stringent with this, but again, we don't, and I say this all the time now, we don't get to work in silos. There can be one school district that is doing it perfectly well, and we don't want to penalize those school districts who have the ability to get on their computer, set it up, who have spent years setting up. We don't want to penalize that. We have to also be reasonable to know that this is a very diverse district where everyone doesn't have that opportunity. And what e-learning looks like to one school district may look very different. And again, I do not want to go back to the day where a pack of papers gets sent home with kids, and that's e-learning. You don't have to go to school.
Tom Cosmos, on behalf of the business community, I do have a question for you. The school district takes a great deal from our business, asks for a great deal from our business community. from internships and field experiences to student employment and fundraisers. Many of our businesses happily answer. We've got a very supportive community here in Yorkville. Is there any thought to providing an incentive to businesses that open their doors and or contribute financially as a partner to the local schools?
That's a great idea, Tom. We have a project. I have not heard of any, of any type of, I mean, there's a lot of, obviously, throughout the state, there's a lot of business community relationships that are in place, and it's a lot of it is the business giving to the school district. I guess the give and take is the fact that many of the businesses, what I hear, and I sit in 7 chambers, a lot of them is that, we want these kids to have some of the soft skills too. So when they come into our business community, they get that experience of working a job, being on top. Not that you don't do that in school, but it's a little different type of relationship. So, for the businesses that I have heard, they like that flexibility. But at the same time, I think that is something that obviously could be a bigger discussion when you create these concrete, repeated relationships, and how do we help our businesses who are taking this initiative as well. I don't know of anything going on, but I am always very willing to listen to new ideas and how we as a school community can help you too.
I don't know how much more I can add to that other than I think Senator Resnick will probably touch on as well, but down in Grundy County, a program that she helped launch that brought businesses with our local school districts as a partnership to help learn some of those skills that were going to be beneficial to our local workforce. And I'll let her touch on that because she's worked very hard and diligently to launch that, and it's been wildly successful.
I did not pay him to say that, by the way. I know, but anyway, so great question, Tom. I mean, here's the deal. We have, we're graduating kids, and in Grundy County, and I saw Mike back there, and he's been a recipient. He's a rock star from South Wilmington, and they've been advocating and helping us as well. When I visited many businesses throughout our district, we heard from businesses saying, "Oh, we can't find the people from high school with the soft skills we need. Soft skills, show up on time, know how to work, even though if you aren't given a project, work throughout the day," all of those things. But then we talked to the superintendents, and the superintendent said, you know what, you give us a chance, I'll give you our best and brightest, right? I know who they are in our district. So we had superintendent champions from Grundy County, and we had business champions from Grundy County, and I think we started this program maybe 6 years ago, and asked businesses to provide paid project-based internships, and we went to the schools and said, show us your best and brightest, and then we went to the vocational center, who really went through the hundreds of resumes submitted by juniors and seniors in high schools, and it was a blind audition, it was a blind interview, no nepotism here, it's the only way that this works. Best and brightest, the top 3 would go then to the employers, and then they were hired. It was real world experience. We did not tell businesses what they had to do, or there was no restrictions on them. And I'm proud to say this year, we start this summer, we have 43 paid project-based internships for juniors and seniors. And the businesses will tell you it's been such an incredible experience because they now are being exposed because of the superintendents to the best and brightest that are graduating from their school. So they've made that connection. They're starting this pipeline, and many of them go on to go to school and then come back and work for the employer. Not to toot my horn, but we hear a lot about sports and great things. We have all of these sporting dinners afterwards. We have a dinner after this internship program, and it's become such a big deal to honor the interns, and they talk about the projects that they worked on all summer, that we run out of food. I mean, the whole families, they bring their brothers and sisters because they want to expose them to what is going on here. So last August, we had this dinner, we had over 200 people attend. So it's a good thing. We have a model we're happy to share with anyone in the room. We have a traveling road show. We'll come and tell you about what we're doing, and happy to do that. Thank you.
Just to follow up real quickly there, when I was on the Aurora Chamber Board as the chairman, we worked with the Aurora schools and had the Prosperity Project that kind of outlined underline some of the same things that have been mentioned here, but I think to talk to Tom's question for a moment, you're talking about an incentive process that would encourage more businesses to be involved. Oftentimes the businesses that you hear about are leading businesses in the community, they're already engaged in that way, but as a way to reach out further and possibly make it financially more beneficial to them to be a part of those things. And Tom, maybe we can talk afterwards about starting up at least a discussion about what else we can do. I'm involved in many discussions in Springfield regarding tax incentives for businesses who are creating jobs or building things. They're all parts, hugely important to our economic growth. This is also hugely important to our economic growth. So let's see if we can make maybe some of this a component of what we talk about in Springfield right now. So thanks for the question.
I would add that we've been involved in many different efforts around that kind of partnership, pathways between a school district, a business, and a college or university that really help work out, particularly in the areas of career and tech ed, that help prepare the students for jobs in the community afterwards. And there's one other point that I think is important, because we keep hearing this, we're hearing it from all kinds of businesses, and it's the soft skills, it's that our kids don't know really how to work collaboratively. They have less of an ability to problem solve, thinking critically, and we would submit to you that that's something that we have to really look at in the context of testing, okay? That the academics, which we know are critically important, have been crowding out some of those life skills, those soft skills that are necessary for people to be successful at work and in life. So creating that balance, it's a conversation that I think has to come back to every single district, because when you talk to those businesses, this is what they tell you. This is what they tell us. So I'm just urging to everyone here to have those conversations at the district level with business partners, with your teachers, with your unions, and figure out what the right balance is in terms of what we are saying and how we are teaching kids.
With the recent changes in state leadership, do you anticipate any significant changes in the evidence-based funding model that Senator Resin has mentioned a few times today? Or can we expect to see the continued $350 million annual increased funding levels to help drive more equity across Illinois schools?
Thank you for that question. I don't anticipate changes other than trying to make, flesh out the unintended consequences from the evidence-based model. I do think it's here to stay. We can make it better. It's my understanding that the new superintendent, who I just met for the first time, had said that she intends to continue along the same path. Regarding the priority of the $350 million in new money each year back into education, the commitment for all of us is still there, and more money for early childhood development. So that's a budgetary thing. I do believe that it's bipartisan as well. So I do not see that changing, or the impact of having a new superintendent come in change anything we've already started, but thank you.
There's no way that's changing. It was a lot of time. But as Senator Resin said, there's that professional review panel that is going to obviously tweak things, because it was a monstrous bill. So they'll make suggestions, but the goal is to continue to the $350 million. And just a really quick side note too, when we say that, we have to forget that, the State Board of Education is a very unique situation. Sometimes, they're a separate entity to the legislators. So sometimes when things come down from the State Board of Education, and I would say that we get blamed at the legislative level, and we don't, it is a separate agency. So not everything is coming from, we are voting on. Now this obviously was something that it was a change formula that you needed, because the legislation does appropriate their budget. That is why it is. So it's something that a superintendent can come in that
2017, about 1,030 of our students qualified to receive special education services in the general education classroom. The law requires that these students be placed in classrooms that are 70% general education students and a maximum of 30% special education students. The 30% limit means that the district needs to add classrooms and pay additional staff to maintain that 30-70 balance. With the district's limited space and financial resources, is there any consideration of amending this law to allow a greater percentage of special education students in the general education classroom?
So, this is an issue that we hear from our members very strongly, that if we were to change that, every one of the legislators here would be hearing from our members in large numbers. And that's because although the law is 70-30, the actual implementation, the actual teaching of children in a classroom with even that range is really difficult. Okay, that we are asking a lot of educators, are asking a lot from educators to just be able to teach in this, with this ratio. However, there is a waiver process. That waiver process is in place, and if we need to be talking about that waiver process, we're willing to have those conversations. Because I think it was, I can't remember when it was changed, it may be 5-6 years ago, maybe longer, that it was that waiver process was put in place and changed. We're happy to look at that. We're happy to get feedback from all stakeholders about how that's working. But this is something that it's a challenge to teach. You know, if we want to talk about career sustainability, this is part of it. The changing needs of students, whether they're in regular education or special education, our students' needs are changing. They come in with more, there's more issues. If you just look at the rate of poverty that's gone up in Illinois, then we have students who are coming in at higher levels at the poverty level, which we know brings on more toxic stress that actually impairs kids' ability to learn. So we're willing to have the conversation about the waiver process. Our members will actually be at your door, if you're a legislator, about changing that. So that's, and I'm just being brutally honest here, that that's a fact.
It's an accurate fact. And you know, I have mixed feelings with this. I've served as a school administrator as well as a teacher, so I'm kind of in the middle of this debate here. I can appreciate, I really do appreciate the fact that, you know, this is dealing with dollars, but at the same time, you know, the needs of our special ed students are so vast that, you know, to have a minimum requirement, and I know this is a little above and beyond what the federal feds require. You know, it's just one of these mixed bags, and the reality of it is you're outnumbered here. You really are outnumbered in this. If anything else, this is a political battle that you are just going to have to decide if you want to take that on. Because again, once you even start talking about this, you will have members call, and it's not just members who teach special ed. So it's just a battle of the wits here, So who's going to outlast the other? But I do agree. I found IEA and IET to be very willing to sit down and always have a conversation. Some things, they'll just say absolutely no. We're not going to bend there. But it's the same thing with I did the same thing with the alliance group, the management groups. There's some things that they're willing to have discussion with, and some things they're just absolutely not going to. So if it's something that we can improve, it may be not exactly how we want to. We have to take small steps in this process, especially something so politically charged is this issue.
I would just add that, just sort of as a general statement, if there's something that has an unintended about implementation that's not going well. Let's identify what it is and fix that, rather than throwing everything out or changing it completely. We do come to conversations at the state level around policy as problem solvers. Let's figure out what it is. Let's try to find a way to fix what's broken and balance in really what we call a shared interest kind of way. We have shared interests here. Teachers, the unions, school management, communities, districts. We have shared interests. Let's identify those interests and figure out good ways to solve problems.
This is the reason why I came here to listen. This is something that's out of my depth, from my own background. But to hear the discussion back and forth, understand the discussions coming to us, very helpful to me, to my staff, and again, appreciate the dialogue.
Okay, for the last 10 minutes, I'm going to offer it up to any of our guests who want to make some closing remarks to the group. You're welcome to come up. What's it?
The senator wants to do a question.
Yeah, we're going to stay 10 minutes.
All right. All right, tell me now. All right, David Walter, as the late guy again. No, thank you for the opportunity to come here. This is one of the most important, I think, educational gatherings that we have with educational leaders throughout the region. So I greatly appreciate you guys taking the leadership to put this on and have us here. I represent the 75th District, so that's most of Grundy County and a large landmass of Kendall County as well. Dips into LaSalle County and into Will County. This is, believe it or not, I got to take on a leadership role this year. Technically my third term. I was appointed to a partial term, and I'm only 27 years old. So it's been quite an experience, but what was that?
Maybe when people elect it.
Yeah. Working on it, exactly. But no, I've really been involved this year with a lot of larger discussions. There's a lot of things coming out of Springfield right now, whether it's energy policy, education policy, how we end up collecting revenue for the state, capital bill that will have a great impact on a lot of our school districts as well, depending on what your needs are. So I'm really excited this year to finally kind of be within some of the leadership ranks. Keith, one of our local reps here, how awesome is it to have him as part of our leadership team in the House as well. But just like Keith said, my office is always available to answer any questions. We're happy to be a conduit to the state or state agencies. If I can ever come out and see what you're doing in your local school districts, I'm happy to do that. I love being a principal for a day. This isn't necessarily my strong point in terms of sitting on any of these committees. However, whenever any of you reach out to my office, I hope we get back to you in a timely manner and take those concerns and thoughts whenever I'm voting on legislation down in Springfield. Thank you.
So are there any questions from members of the group here today? Now's your chance.
Dawn, the beauty of being a legislator is you can make any bill you want, and we have seen them. You can come up with any idea, and you can turn it into a bill. It's a matter of getting it through legislation and actually turning it into law. But I think that is a good conversation, because again, we know that there's internships throughout the state with high schools and business communities, and even many paid ones as well. But again, I think what I'm hearing Tom say is, help us and get a little more incentivized so you have more businesses willing to do that. And I am absolutely, I think you've heard Paul say that we are more than willing to have that conversation. Now, you know, when you do tax credits, that becomes another issue, because every time you do a tax credit, it takes away dollars from from the school districts that we're, so it's kind of a mix. It's kind of a mixed bag. But again, it's, depending on what it looks like, how it's shaped out. Those are all great conversations.
I'll follow up with the concept there as it's something we should certainly discuss. Now, the day after the minimum wage bill passed, I was in discussions with some of the governor's staff, who I consider to be good friends of mine. And just as another quick sidebar for everybody, you realize that we all get along really well. You see in the news and the newspapers sometimes, it seems that we're all just clamoring to battle every day with each other, and we actually work together very well. So back to the governor's office, they realize there's some issues with what got passed in that minimum wage bill. There's some issues that we can address for small business, that we can maybe tie to the concept we brought up today here. I don't know if the answer is yes or not, but it's certainly worth bringing up. Have those discussions. And we've been sitting here talking about the idea of, hey, let's get with Tom and others to provide at least maybe a direct path for some kind of incentivization, whether it's a tax credit or not. There's other ways to do it that would help begin the process. Because the idea of us starting a bill today, this morning, and trying to get it done by May 31st probably isn't realistic with the litany of things that are already in the queue right now. But it doesn't. But some of those take years to pass anyway. So if we can start this process now and get the momentum going, I think that's a great way to begin. So thanks for the idea. Appreciate it.
Okay, so mine isn't really a question, but it's more of an encouragement, and to help Dr. Shrimp stay on time, I'll make it very brief. Senate Bill 1371, Jennifer, that's your bill. It has to do with secondary locking systems in the classrooms. This is a school safety issue that's been a battle for several years between our office and quite frankly, teachers, because as a former teacher, I was looking to ways to keep my classroom safe in case of, God forbid, a horrific event. I just encourage you guys to stay on top of it. I am helping on the ground level of writing that. We have a lot of local fire department people involved in that. ISB and the State Fire Marshal's office are at odds with that. I think we have a negotiated language that would satisfy both of their needs. So again, I appreciate the emphasis on getting that passed, and just watch it coming forward, because again, there's a lot of local fire department, police departments involved in the language of that, and I think it's going to be some good language for you guys to pass. So I encourage you guys to work together on that, and thank you for your support on that.
Just to be fair, I don't want to take credit, because it's not mine. I think that is Senator Rose's bill, so yeah, it's Senator Rose, yeah.
Anything else? Anybody else? Well, I do want to thank all of our honorary guests. It's nice to echo your comments about everyone getting along, and I think if any of you have had the opportunity to have a conversation with the individuals at the table, they are very approachable. We have seen since a year ago when we did this, we've seen increased communication. We've been on the receiving ends of phone calls asking for input. We feel that we've opened dialogue that has been drastically missing for many, many years. So I thank all of you for your efforts and what you do on behalf of all of our communities and our school districts. And we look forward to our future work together. And thank you everybody for coming. Have a great day.